Some of the best JRPGs ever made? You've never played them because they never got an English release. From dragon-raising tactics to emotional stories Nintendo still won't touch, these are the masterpieces trapped in Japan. Let's open the vault.
Number 1. Bahamut Lagoon. If you've ever wanted a tactical RPG where you command not just soldiers, but living fire-breathing dragons, Bahamut Lagoon is the game you never got to play. Released in 1996 for the Super Famicom, this was Square firing on all cylinders during its golden age. The premise was simple yet brilliant. You control squads of characters alongside customizable dragons, each of which responds to how you feed and train them. Dragons could breathe fire across the battlefield, freeze rivers, burn forests, and literally reshape the map mid-battle. The result was a strategy RPG that felt alive, chaotic, and cinematic, years ahead of its time. So why didn't we get it? Timing. By the time Bahamut Lagoon launched, the SNES was dying in the West, and Square had already shifted resources to the PlayStation. Localizing a massive text-heavy RPG for a console about to be retired just didn't make financial sense. Still, the tragedy is clear. Bahamut Lagoon wasn't just a late SNES experiment, it was one of the most ambitious tactical RPGs ever made. To this day, it's locked in Japan, playable only thanks to passionate fan translators who refuse to let it be forgotten.
Number 2. Shining Force 3, Scenarios 2 and 3. Imagine reading a trilogy of novels, but only getting the first book in English. That's exactly what happened with Shining Force 3. Western players only got Scenario 1, while Scenarios 2 and 3, the ones that completed the epic story, stayed locked in Japan. What makes this especially painful is how interconnected the narrative was. Each scenario followed different protagonists with overlapping battles and political intrigue that tied everything together. Without the final two parts, Western players were left hanging in the middle of one of Sega's most ambitious stories. So, why the cutoff? The Sega Saturn was already on life support in the West, and Sega was shifting full focus to the Dreamcast. With the Saturn considered commercially dead outside Japan, localizing two massive tactical RPGs was deemed a waste of money. For strategy fans, it's one of the great unfinished tales of gaming history. Japanese players saw the grand finale. Western audiences were left forever wondering what happened next. Even now, Shining Force 3 stands as a painful reminder of how console wars and business decisions can kill great storytelling.
Number 3. Front Mission 5, Scars of the War. When it comes to mecha RPGs, few series have the legacy of Front Mission, and many fans consider Front Mission 5 to be the pinnacle. Released in 2005 on the PS2, this game tied together the series' sprawling timeline, delivering a story about nationalism, globalization, and the personal cost of war. The gameplay was equally refined. Customizable mechs, known as Wanzers, returned, but with smoother mechanics and more tactical depth than ever before. It built upon everything the series had done before, and for many players, it was the perfect blend of strategy and narrative. So why was it never localized? The short answer: sales. Front Mission 4 had performed poorly in North America, and Square Enix wasn't willing to take the risk of localizing a massive text-heavy strategy game that relied heavily on knowledge of earlier entries, several of which were themselves never translated. It's a cruel irony. Front Mission 5 was the series at its absolute best, yet it's the entry Western players never officially got. Fans have since patched it into English, but officially, this mecha masterpiece is still locked away, a victim of corporate risk aversion.
Number 4. Treasure of the Rudras. Treasure of the Rudras was Square's final RPG on the Super Famicom, and it went out with a bang. Released in 1996, this hidden gem pushed the limits of both storytelling and gameplay with a premise unlike anything else. The world has just 15 days left before humanity's destruction, and you play through 4 different intertwined storylines leading up to that apocalypse. But what really set Rudras apart was its magic system.
Instead of learning spells in the usual way, you literally created them by combining syllables to form incantations. Players discovered thousands of possible combinations, experimenting to invent unique attacks or buffs. It was a system that rewarded creativity and gave you ownership over your arsenal in a way most RPGs never dared. The narrative was equally bold, drawing heavily from Hindu cosmology and religious themes about cycles of life, rebirth, and gods abandoning humanity. For 1996, this was as experimental and philosophical as JRPGs came. So why didn't we get it? Two big reasons: text overload and cultural sensitivity. The amount of script was massive, making localization a serious challenge, and Western publishers at the time were terrified of offending audiences with overt religious references. So, like many of Square's most innovative games, it stayed in Japan. Today, Treasure of the Rudras is remembered as one of the most ambitious SNES RPGs ever made. But unless you dive into a fan translation, it's still locked away as a what could have been masterpiece.
Number 5. Sigma Harmonics. Released in 2008, Sigma Harmonics is one of the strangest and most fascinating RPGs Square Enix ever made. On the surface, it's a murder mystery set across multiple timelines, but in practice, it's a hybrid of visual novel-style deduction, JRPG battles, and music-driven mechanics. You play as Sigma Kuragami and his partner Neon, traveling through alternate histories to solve murders that ripple across time. The twist? Your deductions literally shape how hard the game becomes. If you accuse the wrong suspect or make flawed logic leaps, the next boss fights get tougher, punishing you for sloppy detective work. Combat itself was just as unusual. Instead of traditional attacks, Sigma Harmonics used a card-based system influenced by the soundtrack. Different pieces of background music determined how quickly your cards recharged, meaning the music itself became part of your strategy. With a haunting score composed by Masashi Hamauzu, who also worked on Final Fantasy XIII, the audio wasn't just atmosphere, it was gameplay. So why didn't this gem make it west? Square Enix saw it as too niche, too text-heavy, and too culturally specific for the DS's international audience. Ironically, that same uniqueness is why it's remembered as one of the most ambitious experiments the company ever attempted on handhelds. For fans of time travel stories and experimental RPG mechanics, Sigma Harmonics is an unlocalized treasure that still feels ahead of its time.
Number 6. Princess Crown. Before Odin's Sphere, A Dragon's Crown, there was Princess Crown, directed by George Kamitani, who would later found Vanillaware. This 1997 Sega Saturn title laid the foundation for everything that studio would become famous for. The game was a side-scrolling action RPG with gorgeous hand-drawn visuals that looked more like an animated film than a video game. You played as Princess Gradriel, a young warrior queen determined to protect her kingdom. Combat was real-time and fast, inspired by fighting games like Street Fighter, but layered with RPG mechanics like stamina management, item usage, and leveling. On top of that, Princess Crown was packed with side stories where you played as other characters, giving the world more depth and variety. It wasn't just a pretty game, it was ambitious in how it told its story across multiple perspectives. So why was it never localized? The Saturn's disastrous performance in the West sealed its fate. By 1997, publishers saw little point in investing in costly translations for a system already considered dead outside Japan. Still, Princess Crown remains a crucial missing link in RPG history. Without it, Vanillaware's later masterpieces wouldn't exist, and fans outside Japan missed out on one of the most beautiful 2D RPGs of the 90s.
Number 7. Tales of Rebirth. The Tales franchise has always been a fan favorite in the West, but one of its strongest entries, Tales of Rebirth, never left Japan. It was released in 2004 on PlayStation 2 and introduced the 3-line linear motion battle system, which split the battlefield into 3 planes. This added a new layer of tactical depth, forcing you to manage positioning and line switching during combat. But gameplay wasn't the only standout. The story tackled unusually mature themes for a Tales game.
It's centered around racial prejudice and coexistence, with its hero, Vague Lundberg, trying to rescue his kidnapped friend while uncovering a larger conflict between humans and a race called the Huma. It wasn't just a cheerful adventure, it was a narrative about oppression, fear, and the struggle for unity. In Japan, Tales of Rebirth sold over 600,000 copies and earned praise for its darker storytelling and polished mechanics. Yet Namco never brought it west. Why? Market timing. Localizing a massive PS2 RPG in 2004, when the series still had limited traction outside Japan, was considered too risky. It's one of the great what-ifs of the Tales series. Fans got weaker spin-offs localized, while one of its strongest core entries never saw daylight outside Japan.
Number 8. Valkyria Chronicles III. If you ask hardcore fans of Valkyria Chronicles which entry is the best, many will point to Valkyria Chronicles III. Released exclusively for the PSP in 2011, this installment refined everything from the first two games: tactical movement, real-time shooting, and squad management, while telling its darkest story yet. Instead of heroic main characters, you followed the Nameless, a penal military unit made up of deserters, criminals, and outcasts forced to take on the most dangerous Black Ops missions of the Second European War. It was a mature, morally great tale about sacrifice, redemption, and fighting in the shadows. The gameplay also hit its peak here. Missions had more variety, the balance between strategy and action was tighter, and the character customization was deeper than ever. In Japan, critics widely praised it as the franchise's best entry. So why didn't we get it? Sega had all but abandoned the PSP in the West after poor sales of Valkyria Chronicles II. They assumed there was no market for a text-heavy strategy RPG on a dying handheld. The result? Western fans never got the game that perfected the Valkyria formula. Even now, Valkyria Chronicles III is considered the best entry we never got to play.
By the way, if you're enjoying this trip through forgotten JRPG history, hit that like button so more fans can discover it too. And if you're new here, subscribe for more deep dives into RPGs you might have missed. Alright, back to the list, because the next game, you'll wonder how it never got localized.
Number 9. Summon Night. When people think of Summon Night in the West, they usually remember the Swordcraft story spin-offs on Game Boy Advance. Fun little action RPGs, sure, but they weren't the main event. The true core of the franchise was the tactical RPG mainline series on PS1 and PS2. And here's the kicker: none of those ever got localized. The main entries delivered grid-based tactical combat, branching storylines, and a massive cast of characters you could summon, befriend, or recruit. Think of it as a mix between Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics, but with its own identity and flair. Each game had a deep narrative, often involving parallel worlds, magical creatures, and wars that forced unlikely heroes into impossible choices. So why skip them? Bandai, and later Namco Bandai, decided to localize only the smaller spin-offs, believing the complex, text-heavy tactical RPGs wouldn't sell well in the West. Ironically, tactical RPGs were gaining momentum here thanks to games like Disgaea and Advance Wars. To this day, it's baffling. Fans got the side dishes, but never the main course. And that leaves Summon Night as one of the most frustrating examples of a series that deserved international recognition, but never got its chance.
Number 10. Teranigma. If there's one game that symbolizes how cruel localization decisions can be, it's Teranigma. Developed by Quintet, the same team behind Illusion of Gaia and Soul Blazer, this 1995 SNES action RPG was nothing short of extraordinary. You play as Ark, a mischievous boy who accidentally sets off a chain of events that requires him to resurrect the Earth itself. From raising continents out of the ocean, to restoring plant and animal life, to guiding the rise of human civilization, Teranigma isn't just a quest, it's the story of life, death, and rebirth on a cosmic scale. The gameplay blended real-time combat, puzzle solving, and light platforming, but what truly made Teranigma unforgettable was its philosophical narrative. It asked heavy questions about creation, destruction, and the meaning of progress. It was the kind of story that stayed with you long after the credits rolled. So why didn't it reach North America? Enix had closed its US office by the mid-90s, and without a publisher, Teranigma only released in Japan and parts of Europe. For North American players, it became one of the great what-could-have-been legends of the 16-bit era. Even today, fans beg for a re-release because Teranigma isn't just a lost RPG, it's one of the most powerful stories the SNES generation ever produced.
Number 11, Mother 3. Few unlocalized games have achieved the mythic status of Mother 3. Released in 2006 for the Game Boy Advance, it's the long-awaited sequel to Earthbound, Mother 2, and it delivered one of the most emotional journeys in all of gaming. You follow Lucas and his family in a rural village that slowly succumbs to industrialization, greed, and tragedy. What starts as a quirky, funny RPG soon spirals into a heartbreaking exploration of loss, grief, and the destruction of innocence. Mother 3 is famous for scenes that left players in tears, moments that rival the most dramatic storytelling in the genre. So why didn't Nintendo bring it west? Theories abound. Its dark themes, its satire of capitalism, even its handling of sensitive topics like death and identity may have made Nintendo nervous about backlash. Whatever the reason, the decision turned Mother 3 into the most famous missing RPG in history. Fans eventually released a polished English translation in 2008, keeping the game alive internationally. But to this day, despite endless petitions and fan campaigns, Nintendo has never given Mother 3 an official release outside Japan. It remains the white whale of JRPG localization, a masterpiece everyone's heard of, but only the most determined fans have played.
Number 12, Dragon Quest X. It's almost unbelievable. Every mainline Dragon Quest game has been localized, except Dragon Quest X. Released in 2012 for the Wii, this was Square Enix's bold leap into the MMORPG space. Imagine a full-fledged Dragon Quest adventure, but online, with players forming parties, exploring dungeons, and tackling massive story arcs together. Over time, DQX expanded across Wii U, 3DS, PC, and even Switch, becoming a cultural phenomenon in Japan. It wasn't just an MMO, it was still a story-driven RPG in the traditional Dragon Quest style, with Akira Toriyama's art and Koichi Sugiyama's iconic music intact. So why no localization? Running an MMO overseas requires huge infrastructure, servers, and ongoing support. Square Enix didn't think the Western market would sustain a subscription-based Dragon Quest MMO, especially with Final Fantasy XIV already filling that niche. Fans held out hope when an offline version was announced in 2021, but even that remains Japan only. Which means, incredibly, Dragon Quest X is still the only numbered entry in the legendary series that global fans can't officially play.
Number 13, Sakura Wars. Sega's Sakura Wars franchise is one of Japan's most beloved, blending strategy RPG combat with dating sim mechanics in a steampunk version of the Taisho era. The mix sounds bizarre, but in practice, it created one of the most unique RPG experiences ever made. You didn't just fight demons in giant steam-powered mechs. You also built relationships with your teammates, with dialogue choices affecting combat performance and branching storylines. It was half tactical RPG, half character-driven drama, wrapped in anime-style presentation that was ahead of its time. But despite critical acclaim and strong sales in Japan, almost none of the main entries were localized. Only Sakura Wars, So Long My Love for PS2 and Wii made it west, leaving most of the saga locked away. Sega worried the series' heavy reliance on Japanese cultural themes, extensive text, and hybrid gameplay wouldn't resonate outside Japan. The result? A cornerstone RPG franchise remained hidden for decades, and Western fans only got a tiny taste of what made Sakura Wars special.
Number 14, Tales of Destiny 2. Here's where things get messy. In Japan, Tales of Destiny 2 was the true sequel to the PS1 original, set nearly 2 decades later and following Kyle, the son of Stan and Rudy. It built on everything the first game introduced, pushing the series' 2D combat to new heights with the trust and tactical linear motion battle system, a fast, combo-heavy real-time system that encouraged skillful spacing and team coordination. Many fans still rank it as one of the finest Tales entries ever made. So why didn't we get it? Ironically, we already had a Tales of Destiny 2 in the West, what Japan knew as Tales of Eternia. Bandai Namco didn't want the confusion of 2 completely different games with the same name, and localizing a massive script was considered too expensive for a franchise still seen as niche overseas. As a result, both the PS2 original and the PSP port stayed locked in Japan. What makes this sting is that Tales of Destiny 2 wasn't a throwaway side story. It was one of the core Tales experiences with a direct connection to a fan-favorite protagonist. Instead, Western fans got fragments of the franchise while one of its best mainline titles remained untranslated. For Tales fans, it's still one of the biggest missing pieces.
Number 15. Ys 5 Lost Kefin, Kingdom of Sand. Falcom's Ys series is known for fast-paced action, but Ys 5 broke tradition in bold ways. Released in 1995 on the Super Famicom, it slowed down the frantic bump combat of earlier games and introduced a more deliberate system. Manual sword swings, guarding, jumping, and a charge-based magic system that leveled separately from physical combat. For the first time, battles felt tactical, almost experimental, like Falcom was reimagining what Ys could be. The story took Adel into the desert city of Xandria, where he uncovered the mysteries of a lost sand-covered kingdom and its buried secrets. The setting gave the game a distinct tone, sun-soaked, mysterious, and unlike any other entry. So why is it missing? Timing. By 1995, the SNES era was ending in the West, and Falcom didn't have the publishing power to push it overseas. Even the PS2 remake in 2006 stayed Japan only. Fans eventually filled the gap with a polished fan translation of the SNES version, but officially, Ys 5 is the only mainline entry never released in English. That makes it the black sheep of the series, not because it's bad, but because it's the one adventure most Ys fans have never had the chance to experience. With every other entry now globally available, Lost Kefin feels like the final missing piece of Adel's journey. From fans to lifelines, the translation underground. When publishers said no, fans said yes. Communities like romhacking.net kept these games alive, spending years making English patches so the rest of the world could finally play. Some of the biggest? Mother 3, Bahamut Lagoon, Tales of Fantasia, YS5, Princess Crown, Treasure of the Rudras, and even Valkyria Chronicles III. Without fans, we'd never have touched these games. But here's the thing, fan translations aren't the answer. They can't preserve games on modern platforms, they can't guarantee quality, and they don't give developers credit. What they do prove? The demand is real, players care, and now it's up to publishers to stop ignoring that. The good news? Things are changing. Square Enix finally localized Live Alive after almost 30 years. The Front Mission remakes are bringing once Japan-only entries worldwide. And games like Persona and 13 Sentinels prove that Western audiences want deep, story-heavy JRPGs. But there's still work to do. Dragon Quest X Offline? Still Japan only. Fans had to build their own mods just to play it. That shows the appetite is there. The only question is whether publishers like Bandai Namco and Falcom will finally answer it. So those are the JRPG masterpieces still trapped in Japan. Some rescued by fans, others still locked away. Which one do you want localized the most? Drop your pick in the comments. And if you love deep dives into JRPG history, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell, because trust me, there are even more hidden gems we're gonna uncover.